Well, welcome back, everybody, to White Sands Self-Care Community. I am your host and resource for self-care and connections and collaborations. Laura Cross, hey, we should probably throw that part in there too. Anyway, I am super excited. We have so many phenomenal people. And this mid-20 dynamo that I've got with me today, Carly Fleischer, she has gone from finance to fulfillment and has already found her way into owning her own business, her own fitness business, Moxie Barbell, which I will tell you, she does have plenty of Moxie. And I know we're just going to give you a little bit of a taste because we have her whole entire episode coming up this Monday. But Carly, thank you for joining us. And so tell people a little bit how that went. I mean, to discover that in your early 20s and mid 20s and make that shift, to me is just phenomenal.
Yeah, well, thank you. And thanks for having me again today. It's fun to have a follow up with you after having gotten to record the episode. So, yeah, it definitely was a really big shift that I took in my early 20s. So, not to give too much away from the episode, but I graduated from college from the University of Rochester in upstate New York with dual degrees in economics and psychology, and went off to work at Ernst & Young in financial consulting, which was like the pinnacle of success of what you could have coming out of my school and coming out of my major. And I followed the path I was supposed to. I got good grades, good internships, and then got a good job. And that was supposed to be the light at the end of the tunnel and the sense of fulfillment and happiness. But I think, as everybody can probably guess, that is not necessarily what it led to. I got to that job and I was super miserable. Turns out I'm really not the kind of person that should be sitting behind a desk all day. It's definitely not for me. And that became apparent really, really quickly. And I ended up making it only 6 months at that job before I kind of had a mental breakdown and was like, I gotta quit. And that was like a huge failure for me because I had never really quit anything before. I had never not been good at anything because I was a good student. I just assumed that would translate to being good in the working world. And then, yeah, fast forward, I had 5 different variations of corporate jobs over the next 5 or so years, trying to find what felt like a good fit. And spoiler alert, nothing really did. And I had a long string of being at jobs for 6 months, maybe a year. I think that was like my longest record, until one thing led to another. And I realized that fitness was the kind of undercurrent, the thing that really underpinned everything that I was doing in the corporate world, and kind of the only thing that was holding me together outside of the career uncertainty. And so, yeah, I made the decision to take the leap and get myself certified and start working at a gym, building some experience, and then launched Moxie Barbell on the side in the background. And I took it full time about 3.5 weeks ago.
To me, I just find it very inspirational. It shows the difference, I think, if nothing else, between the generations.
Yeah.
Because we all, if you're a Gen X or earlier than that, you were taught, you go to school, you go get a degree, you get a job, and you do what you're supposed to do. No one ever talks about, are you really happy doing what you're doing?
Yeah, it wasn't, I'm going to be honest, it wasn't something I really thought about either. And it was what you just said. It was very much the values that were instilled in me. It was even when I went to my parents, and I mean, I'm really close with my parents. I value their advice tremendously. But when I went to them month 4 or 5 working at EY saying, I'm miserable, I think I want to quit, they told me not to. And even once I was interviewing and secured a job in a more fitness oriented space at more of a startup, they told me that I shouldn't quit, that I should stick it out, that it wouldn't look good on my resume to only have 6 months at this company. And they kind of stopped giving that advice the longer that I went on and jumping between. But yeah, I mean, I thought the same thing, which is why it felt so friggin' scary when I left, because it was so antithetical to what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah. And I used to get the same kind of advice, oh, don't burn bridges. If you're going to do something, find something else first and give them a 2 weeks notice. Don't just up and quit.
Yeah, which I did do, to be fair.
Yeah.
I did it the right way. And I do agree with that sentiment of not burning the bridge. Just I really think you never know where those connections are going to come in. You never know where you're going to meet people or how they're going to come back into your life. But I do think there's a way to respectfully move on when something isn't a good fit for you. I think that kind of differentiates between doing the thing that's right for you and just falling into more of a people pleasing mentality of, well, I can't do what's right for me because I have to focus on what's best for everybody else. And that was a
Yeah.
big lesson too.
Well, and to me, it's inspiring just because, you are in your mid-20s and you're already an entrepreneur. You found your way, you're happy,
Yeah.
doing what you're doing, where a lot of the older generations, they still kind of look at you and think you should still go to work for somebody. We were never taught really the whole entrepreneurship or how
Yeah.
to be an entrepreneur. And recently, even when I went back to college, there was maybe one professor out of all of them that said, if we're not here to teach you how to be entrepreneurs, what are we doing here? It's
Yeah.
like, it wasn't much different. So the fact that you got enlightened and found that path, I find totally amazing.
Well, thank you. And I mean, to be fair, I never thought this was the path that I would be on. I mean, my dad was entrepreneurial. He owned his own business. My husband, I mean, since the day I met him, he's told me he wants to start his own company. But me, never. I'm so risk averse. The idea of being out on my own and not having stable, secure income and really not having anybody telling me what to do, like that was never in the cards. It really just came down to, I feel like I crammed a lot of life experience into a very short amount of time just by doing so many different jobs and realizing that all of them were not the right fit. And I think at a certain point, I have to realize that it can't all be everything else. The common denominator here is me. And if I'm not happy in any of these positions, then I finally learned that I really needed to take ownership of that and figure out what was going to make me happy instead of just trying to find the next thing and the next thing and the next thing that would maybe get me there. As scary as it was, at least I knew that if I did this, that I had control over it.
Right. And I know, like I said, we're not going to give it all away because you had challenges, you had stuff that you're going to, that
Yeah.
you share in the episode. But I am curious, out of all the things that you could have done, there's lots of things you can do as own business. How did you wind up landing on fitness, or what drew you to fitness?
Yeah. Well, so fitness was really the thing that was, again, like the underpinning of me the entire time I was going through this very topsy-turvy career trajectory. So I was an athlete my whole life growing up, competitive sports, competitive gymnastics, and I kind of fell out of that, got back into it in college, and then fell into competitive powerlifting. And it was when I started powerlifting after college that like I fully went down the fitness rabbit hole, became completely obsessed. My whole life became about it. So yes, I was working at EY as a financial consultant, but I was waking up at 4:30 every day so that I could go to the gym and get my workout in and then shower at the gym before I hopped on the train to go to the city. And I kept doing that throughout every single job that I had. So that was really the only thing that I had consistency with throughout my early 20s. Everything else was chaotic. I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I knew that I loved that. And so naturally from that, because I became somewhat of an expert, but like as much of an expert as a novice in the field can be, people started naturally asking me for advice, friends, family, and things like that. So I started answering questions. I started writing programs. I started helping people with nutritional guidance, meal prepping, all of that kind of thing, and realized that that is the thing that I can talk about nonstop. You ask the question of like, what's the thing you could do for free that you just enjoy doing? This is it. So when it came to figuring out like, I don't think I can really work for anybody else. And even in all of the jobs I was working at, I was always trying to find a job in the fitness space. It was just finding a job in fitness that fit my educational background with somewhat of a unicorn. And I had one of those jobs and they went out of business. So it was really hard to find it again. So it really just was the thing that I loved. It's still the thing that I love. Fitness is a huge part of my life. I do this not because I'm just like some random person that was like, oh, I could get into fitness. This seems lucrative. Nobody gets into the fitness industry because they think they're going to make a ton of money. You get into it because you love it and you're super passionate about it. And so honestly, it's a passion project for me.
Yeah. And I think that's the only way you can really truly be happy in any career. See, I am passionate. I love connecting people and learning about all the different things out there. So this is kind of where I live. It's my space. It's my
Yeah.
space, but it makes me happy. Like I said,
Yeah.
not looking at getting rich. I'm looking at getting happy and making a difference. And
Yeah,
you
well,
do that as well.
it kind of goes back to the idea of like, what is your own rich life, right? Which is, I'm not making this up. This is, what's his name? And it's Naval, is it Naval Ravikant or no? It's Ramit Sethi. He does the I'll Teach You to Be Rich. It's his book. But he has actually a show on Netflix that people can check out now called I'll Teach You to Be Rich, and it's all about creating the version of your own rich life, and that looks a little bit different for everybody. And for me, my rich life is spending all of my time in the gym. It's talking to people about it. It's I could spend all of my money on gym equipment and on nutrition related things, and I'd be very happy. And that may not be things that other people value, that may not lead to their version of happiness. But for me, there's nowhere else I'd really rather be besides in a gym, maybe on the ski slopes. But aside of that, it's really the gym.
But that's the key, though. It's for what you value. It doesn't matter really necessarily. You will provide a value for a lot of people, but ultimately, and which is self-care, it comes down to you and what's making you happy. Because if you're not, then you're not truly living your life, and your purpose.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is that for me, fitness is a huge form of self-care, right? Like fitness,
Mhm.
yes, taking care of my physical body is really important and it makes me feel my best and perform my best. But the things that I do in the gym and the ways that I take care of myself nutritionally and in terms of my habits, those are the ways that I take care of myself. They are the ways that I feel my best, look my best, perform my best in all aspects of my life, right? So like going to the gym, getting outside in nature and having daily movement there. Those are the things that help me disconnect from the stresses of my day-to-day life and help me feel the most in touch with myself, help me also like stay the most present in the given moment. It's something I'm not inherently good at, is like really being present with where I am. But I find that when I'm at the gym, for example, or even when I'm outside walking my dog, it's some of the only times that I really take that structured time to say, hey, this is where I'm at right now. There's no outside distractions. There's nothing else going on. And it's those moments that I have to myself outside of everything else that make me feel the most fulfilled. So I would say that those two things go so hand in hand. And that bleeds over a ton into my coaching style also, because the reality is when I'm coaching people on how to build these consistent habits and things into their lives, people are doing it because they want to be happy, right? Like most people are making decisions because they're trying to solve some problem or alleviate some form of discomfort, which ultimately leads to they're making decisions because they want to be the happiest versions of themselves. And to do that, you really have to get in touch with the reasons why you want to do that thing. Why is X, Y, or Z important to you? How is it going to contribute to the outcomes that you most want to see? So those things are all very, very intertwined. And the ideas of self-care and mindfulness and really being in touch with yourself and your values and why those things are important to you are majorly the underpinnings of the very holistic coaching style that I take for not just fitness coaching, but really health coaching.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come on here. I was so thrilled to do that episode with you. Carly's episode does air this Monday. It is called From Finance to Fulfillment, which you can see she is quite happy and energetic. So if you wanted the rest of the cues of that, you definitely want to catch that episode this Monday. But before we go, what is the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So a few different ways. Number one, you can check out my website, which is moxiebarbell.com. And from there, you can learn a little bit more about my coaching style. And you can also schedule a free consult call to learn more about coaching, see if it's a good fit for you, and just kind of chat with me. And then you can find me on all of the socials, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Moxie Barbell.
Awesome. And we will put those in the comments, and it'll also be in the description on the YouTube channel. So Carly,
Perfect.
definitely thank you for taking the time to share that with the group, and really look forward to seeing all the people that you're going to help touch and change with your episode coming up this Monday.
I
So everyone,
appreciate it.
thank you. Thank you for joining us. And if you want to hear from more fascinating people like Carly and others, then go to the White Sand Self-Care YouTube channel, click subscribe, turn on those notifications. You can catch up to all of our previous interviews and the ones that are coming up, and you won't have to scroll through the Facebook page to find it. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you all next week.